Buying and selling real estate in Houston is about to change forever. And if you ain't ready, you better get ready. And if you're not ready, that's what this video is for. We're going to talk about how we got here, who is most impacted, and some tips to make sure that you are ready to buy your home when the time comes. If that sounds good, stay tuned. So what is exactly happening? The NAR settlement is upon us. It has been a fight for some years, and it looks like, at least for now, that homeowners have won the ability to decouple their listing agent fees and the buyer agency fees. That has been the push for years, and it looks like they are going to get their way. So how do we get to this point? How do a bunch of homeowners feel like they have been taken advantage of and a system is fixed against them? To be completely honest, I have no idea. The whole argument that commissions and fees and all of these things that they were fighting for being non-negotiable, they have always been negotiable. If you look at any listing document, they very clearly break down that this is the amount of commission that you're going to pay. Some of this is going to potentially go to the buyer's agent. Some of this is going to go to potentially the listing agent. And it's very clear, you sign off on it. It has never been a debate. It has always been negotiable. So how so many people felt as though the prices were fixed or that they couldn't be competitive on the market if they didn't pay a certain amount, I'll never understand that. But the onus is on the real estate agent conveying their value and conveying what their clients are actually paying for. And I guess enough agents didn't do that because they started settling. So over the last year, we've seen big companies take settlement pleas for upwards of over $100 million. And eventually you started to see those same lawsuits be levied against actual MLSs. So for example, here in Houston, HAR. And so with all the clamoring from all over the US happening, the NAR had to do something, and this was the settlement agreement, and that's where we are right now. So coming up here within the next couple weeks, they've already started to roll out some new blanks on the actual MLS input sheet. There will no longer be a shown buyer's agent commission shown on the MLS. So as a consumer, you will not know what your agent was being paid. I know right now, if you go on like a Realtor or a Zillow or any of those sites, you can kind of see what the other side is agreeing to pay your buyer's agent if you had that representation, but that is going to be gone starting here within the next couple weeks. So hopping right into the MLS to show you exactly what I mean. Over the next couple weeks, you're going to see this roll out pretty aggressively. So they are going to get rid of this commission section down here. This will no longer be active and available for consumers to see, agents to see. That slot is going away completely because it leans into the price fixing that they have been fighting against for so long. And you're going to see this little bubble that they just started to roll out. I want to say about 2 weeks ago, I started to see this kind of pop up as we were getting closer and closer to the deadline. Seller may contribute to buyer's expenses. And this bubble can be used for commissions. It can be used for your closing costs. It can be used for other credits that are going to help offset your fees. This is basically going to be the new way that sellers say that they are willing to provide some kind of assistance to you as the buyer. It is no longer going to be a given that it is going to be a buyer's commission on any listing going forward. And so you have to be prepared to, when you're looking at these listings going forward, understand that this is going to be the box where you see if that seller is willing to help you at all, at least with how they have the listing presented on the MLS. So am I freaking out? No, I'm not freaking out. And I guess the solace that I have and the reason why I'm not freaking out is because we have free enterprise here. If any party goes to either side of the extremes, the market is going to dictate and kind of level things out. And so we'll go over some of those scenarios and kind of what I mean, but I'm not freaking out. You just have to adjust to what the new normal is in today's market. But there will be huge changes and huge impacts to buyers in this market, hands down. And one of the things that I have always done that is now being mandated is that in order to show property to a prospective buyer, you have to have a contract or a buyer's representation in place. You can no longer go out there and show properties to someone without having that representation. The reason why I've always done it and the reason why I've always been confused when people would say they would just go out there and tour. And there have been big influencers that I follow, even on this platform, that will go out there and say, or they used to say, that they would go out and just show a property to anybody. They didn't need a paperwork. We'll get there when we get there. That is no longer the case, and that's no longer operating within the guidelines of what NAR settlement has set out for us. You have to have that paperwork in place. It shows how things are being paid, who's responsible for what. As a matter of fact, I'll show you right now. And so going forward, you're going to have a buyer's rep agreement in place before you go and look at properties. And it is a good reason, because this document does a great job of establishing a true relationship between you and a buyer, or between you as the buyer and your buyer's agent. It just does a great job. It talks about who's involved in this transaction. It talks about the areas that you're looking at, for how long you're going to be looking at properties together, the obligations of both you as a client and me as the agent. Most importantly, it goes over the fees. And for years, the moment I got my license, I swear I've heard this over 10,000 times, that my buyer's agency fees are free to you. It's no charge to you. When, if you have always been a person like myself that was by the book and looked at documents and understands what the documents means, the buyer's rep agreement is for this very fact. It basically states that in the event that we buy a property together, you are responsible as the person using that service for that fee. On the flip side of that, I am going to attempt to get paid by the other side first. But whatever this number is that we agree on, if they don't pay it, you will pay it. And it has been clear as day that that is the responsibility of the buyer, or of the person using the service. And that is the reason why you have to have this in place, because if you went out there without a paperwork and you showed a property to someone, then the seller didn't pay a commission to an agent in the past, you would be looking at your client like, yeah, do right by me. I'm representing you. Well, now it's no ambiguity. To go out and look at properties, you have to have this form, or a version of this form, signed to do so. That establishes this relationship, and it is clear cut. If you go out there, we buy a property, the perfect property for you, and the other side doesn't pay a commission, they are basically saying that, hey, in this document, you agree to pay your agent to represent you this commission. And it does it perfectly. Without that document, I don't understand how so many people were just blindly doing this, but I never have. So who is going to be impacted? There are definitely going to be some people that are impacted the most, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But I think that this is going to be a widespread issue of basically every socio-economic level. There's going to be some impact when it comes to this new change, because it's just not something that the masses is used to doing. And as we break down some of these scenarios, I think you'll understand exactly what I mean. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm not super freaked out by this, because we live in a world that's kind of in the grays. There are going to be people on the extremes of either side. There's going to be homeowners that say, I'm not paying a penny to a buyer's agent. I don't care who they bring. I'm not doing it. This is my number. I've worked this out with my agent. I'm not helping. There will be buyers that say, well, if you're not helping, I'm not looking at your shitty house, Mr. Homeowner. And so in the middle of that, we will find the middle ground of where that is. Only time will tell what that is for the Houston market. But I do think that we're going to level out somewhere in the middle. And so I'm not super freaked out, but we do need to talk about some of these extremes so you can be prepared as a buyer going into this new landscape in Houston, which is currently, as it stands, still in a light seller's market. Although I think the ripple of this change is going to impact pretty much everyone that is interested in buying and selling real estate, I do think that there are three major groups of people that are going to feel this the most. The first being first-time home buyers, the second ones being veterans, and the thirds being those move up or current homeowners that are looking to make that move to the next property. Let's look at the extremes. In a marketplace where the average single family home sales price is approaching $500,000, kind of like it is here in Houston, which is crazy to even say, that means your average house is going to be somewhere in that like upper $400,000 to $500,000. So for easy numbers, let's pick 500,000, and you are a first time home buyer here, and the homeowner And current listing agent have it as a zero commission listing for the buyer's agent. What does that mean for you? What does that cost as a first-time home buyer? That now means that you are going to have to get your down payment in order, your closing costs, and now also pay whatever it is that you agree upon with your agent. So just using numbers, let's say you have great credit and can afford to have a 3% conventional loan down. That's $15,000 just for down payment. You're going to have closing costs that is anywhere between 2 and 3% on the extreme end, depending on the county that you're in, taxes, all of those things. So let's say that's another $15,000 for that same home. You're already up to $30,000 on your dream home, but now you're up to $30,000. Let's say your agent also has a fee that you've agreed upon and that you have said in the buyer's rep that we just looked at that you would pay that fee if the other person isn't going to pay a broker's commission, right? And so now you have $15,000 for down payment, $15,000 for closing costs, another potential $15,000 or more for your buyer's agent fee, whatever y'all agree upon. And so now, as a first-time home buyer, you are being said, hey, pay your agent, go unrepresented, or settle for a house that you don't want. Do you see how that is a huge problem? And what I know the thought process and what they were trying to accomplish, but do you see what that just does to a first-time home buyer trying to get their first home? It's their dream home. It's what they plan. It's the vision that they see for their home. They worked hard. They can afford a house that is this expensive. And what are they being told? They're being told that you have to foot the bill, no help, no assistance. You are $45,000 in just to be able to potentially afford this home. No other cost and fees going forward. That's $50,000 out the gate just to be able to seriously look at that home if we're looking on the extremes. Now, do I think that that is going to be the norm here? I don't, but only time will tell. But as a buyer, as a first-time home buyer, you have to be prepared to run into that situation and have the thought process and have your own gut compass to say, hey, I'm either going to work harder, save money so I can have representation. I'm either going to go into the biggest decision of my life unrepresented, to me, which sounds crazy, but some will make that decision and potentially get hurt in this upcoming marketplace. And others will just move on and potentially get a house that they don't like as much. But that is going to be the reality for the first-time home buyer in this new marketplace. Now let's hop on over to our veterans, the ones that the U.S. claim that they love so much, but then they would allow a decision like this to come out to potentially harm them. Crazy, right? Many of my clients are veterans. I don't know how the algorithm for me to get so many veterans that reach out to me, but I would say over 50% of my clients are veterans from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds, from all over the U.S., working with a few right now. Love my veterans. But as it stands today, without some kind of a change to how rules are, a veteran could come across that same $500,000 house. It was perfect. And the homeowner says, I'm not helping, I'm not paying your commission. Like legally as it is right now, they can't pay for representation. So they're being told, you can't have this perfect house for you because I have decided as the homeowner listing agent, which is your right, to pay no buyer's representation fee. They're being told that you don't even have the option to pay for your representation right now. You don't even have the option to look at this home that is perfect, potentially perfect for you and your family, because we're not having a broker's fee. So you can either go into this unrepresented, or you can pass and move along to the next house because this one has decided that they are not paying a broker's fee. Do you see the huge issue with that? As a veteran, as someone that has potentially put their life on the line for this country, for potentially going off and been in wars, potentially traveled overseas, whatever you're telling this person that has sacrificed so much that they don't currently even have an option to pay for representation in their current agreements and guidelines for a VA loan. So that in itself, how could you pass something that could impact people that you claim to care so much about in this country with legislation like that? Now, I have started to see the trickle that they're going to do like some temporary guidelines as this thing is starting to roll out that could potentially allow them to pay for compensation. They haven't given guidelines on how much, if they can do some, if they can do the full commission, if there's a cap on that. We haven't been given those guidelines. I've just seen that there's a potential that there's going to be a temporary thing put in place to help veterans in these kind of situations. But if this was good out the gate, why would we be having to do temporary measures for one of the most protected and valued classes of people, which are veterans here in the U.S.? It just makes no sense. But do you see the issues that we have? First with the first-time home buyers, and now with our veterans. You're telling a veteran that has worked hard, has saved their money, done everything right, protected this country, come here and then say, you can't have this home because they are not offering a buyer's commission and you can't currently pay one. So it is what it is. That's crazy, right? And what's even crazier than these changes is the fact that you've been watching this video now and you haven't hit the like button, you haven't hit the subscribe button, you haven't said, Aaron, thanks for putting me on and telling me about what's happening and what's coming in the marketplace and preparing me to buy my next home. And when the time comes, you're gonna be my guy. You haven't hit me up yet, so I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. I'll wait. Hit that bell, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates going on in the market, either from these beautiful communities that we are discovering and dissecting together or news just like this. I want to make sure that you don't miss out on anything. So hit that notification bell and let's hop back into the video. And the third group of people that's going to be impacted the most are those current homeowners. And I don't think they see the issue or the drama yet because they may be fresh into their current home, fresh off the lawsuit, and it's just like, yeah, we got some money back, we won, we got our settlement. But on average in the US, I think the average family moves like every 7 years. So in Houston, I can only imagine what house prices are going to be 7 to 10 years from now. If we are close to 500,000 as an average single family home sales price in one of the most popular cities in all of the US, I can only imagine what house prices are going to be in the future. And because we have now had this settlement, we've all said that agents are terrible people and they're the big bad boogeyman, and they're the reason why cost of homes and all these things are up so high, and we have to decouple the commissions to make sure that everybody's transparent. When it comes time for you to buy your next home, you're going to have to pay for a listing agent to sell your house, and then you are going to have to pay out of pocket your money to pay for your representation. Now, that may not hurt you as much as it does the first time home buyer that doesn't have that equity and that appreciation and that growth. And so you're going to feel it a little less, but I think the amount of current homeowners that are moving up or downsizing that are going to now potentially have to pay out of pocket. Again, you've done everything right. You own property. You have to sell your current house. You're going to have a nice little chunk of change, and a large chunk of that change as prices go up in the market. You're going to potentially pay a higher, let's say 3%. Let's say home values go up from 500,000 to 600,000 conservatively over the next 10 years. You're going to now pay that much more on the buy side to have your representation, or you're going to go into that transaction without representation, or potentially pass on the house that your next home that is right for you and your family because you don't want to deal with footing that bill. Those are the scenarios that we're going to be put in at every socioeconomic level. It's going to be entry level is going to feel it. Some of our veterans are going to feel it. Our move up and move down buyers. These are going to be some of the people that just feel it on every transaction. There's going to be no way around it. Now, again, am I freaked out? No, because we live in a world that is full of grays. Do I think we are going to be on the extreme where all listings completely go to zero help? I don't think that we're going to be there. Do I think that all listings are going to stay pretty much as is? I don't think that we're going to be there either. In a market like Houston, where the demand is high and the inventory is relatively low, I think we're going to find a healthy balance where the end user or the end consumer or buyer of that next home is going to potentially be footing the bill for a portion of their agent and getting a little bit of help from the homeowners. And that's just kind of where we are in today's market. So what can you do in this marketplace as things kind of shift to the unknown? I think the easiest house to look at and the easiest type of home to be potentially purchasing in this new landscape is going to be new construction. Most of the big builders have a budget for paying your agents commissions, so that representation isn't going to be coming out of your pocket. Many times they also have amazing incentives. Highland Homes, for example, right now is giving money towards closing costs and potentially giving you a generator. So that's crazy. It's just too many incentives to pass up. I have a client that we were talking to, a luxury builder in the community around the corner from us, and they were getting nearly $30,000 in closing cost assistance just based on the home that they were purchasing. So it's almost too hard to not give a serious look to new construction. Now, the trade-off with that is most of the new construction options in nice places are kind of getting further and further away from the city. If you're looking at options inside of the city for areas that are a little bit more established, you're going to be looking at price points that are kind of going to be ballooning. But if you're looking at some of those more affordable options, there are some options kind of popping up and around that loop area, but you're dealing with the transitions and the gentrification of different areas. But if you are into new construction, I think that you are going to still do fairly well here because there's only a handful of builders here that don't really like working with agents. If you want to know what that list is, shoot me a text and I'll let you know. But for the most part, you're going to get some kind of assistance towards your agent. You're going to get some kind of assistance towards like a closing cost. You're going to get some kind of a appliance package. You're going to get a lot of help with new construction. The second tip that I have for people is to look at the types of loan programs that can help you. So there's going to be a boom, I think, in the down payment assistance and closing costs sort of assistance here in the Houston Metro. Also, take a look at some of your credit unions. A lot of those credit unions, and I've worked with a few of them that have the zero down programs that are some will even allow you to finance in your closing costs if you have a high enough credit and the numbers just kind of work for them on a whole. I think those are going to be huge in the marketplace, coming for those that you're doing everything that you can, but that extra fee that you're going to have to come out of pocket for just isn't working for you right now. I think those are going to be a couple great options to explore on the financing side. Lastly, I think that just overall guidelines as a whole are about to change a lot for buyers. Right now, for example, we already talked about the veterans not being able to potentially pay an agent and them getting some temporary relief on that one. There are currently seller concession guidelines that we have to follow based on the loan type, based on how much you put down. So for example, if you had a conventional loan and you put less than like 10% down, you have to be at only 3% help for a seller concession on a conventional loan right now. So let's say we have an extreme on this side where we were able to negotiate 3% of seller concession for repairs or whatever we need on our side. If they refuse to also pay your buyer's agent, you wouldn't in its current state be able to get any more assistance on that type of loan product. So I think that as things kind of shift in the marketplace, I think that we're just going to see a wholesale look at all of the guidelines that we have right now to really look at what we can do to really help people. If the goal is to be transparent, if the goal is to make houses more affordable, if the goal is to increase ownership, there's going to be a lot of things that change in the market. I think here pretty quickly we're going to see big box branch banks just come out with their own program, not just credit unions of zero down with closing cost assistance or closing costs financed into your overall loan. I think that's going to become more and more popular as things kind of go on this path. It's not going to just be your specialized credit unions. I think everybody, in an effort to stay active and kind of stay moving the thing forward, they're all going to have to at some point in time conform and give some kind of product to help the masses that would need this potential assistance, just based on the scenarios that we went over today. But having said all that, I do feel confident that this market is going to find its footing. I do understand that there are going to be some extremes on both sides, both buyer and seller. We're going to get through this. Everything is going to level itself out in an equal and fair playing field. But are you ready for the new changes?